Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Yes, Coffee Experts Club. Here we are. Drew Moody, looking down the face of a hurricane. Just so proud of you down there in Belize. Man, brother, hats off to you. Those of you listeners who aren't aware, Drew is down in Belize with our coffee shop down there, and they're facing a hurricane. And Drew just told us he's staying. So, Drew, maybe talk about that for me. So how'd you make that decision?
Someone's got to stand on top of the roof and hold this zinc on, for fly out.
I thought you were going to say, hold the flag, De Los Mayas flag.
I think a lot of the people here have to stay. I don't think a lot of them have a choice. And as a business owner, we have a responsibility to our business and to make sure that it is safe, and not to just come and go because it's convenient. There's things that are going to be needed to be picked up afterwards, pick up the pieces of whatever it is that I could be capable of helping with, So I feel like it's a good decision for the business and for the community to stay, so I can be helpful with if anything arises. Plus, this isn't their first time, so there's going to be safe shelters and stuff that I can hide in until the worst of it's over.
You're not going to be in the top slinging drinks?
Yeah.
Shoot. Well, man, be safe. I know that the thing I do love about Belize is that reef that is just off the island that at least knocks it down a little bit before it actually hit the island. So you're in our prayers, dude. Definitely keep it safe. And I do love about Coffee de los Mayas just that we are always looking out for the people of the island, the communities that we're in, and how can we help? How can we be a benefit to them? So thanks for being willing to stick around there, man. It's a big deal.
Pleasure.
So this week, guys, we have a recap, a deep dive on Derek Tonn from Black Rock Coffee, one of the VPs there. And honestly, that's one of our, biggest guests that we've got to interview, of somebody that's pretty high up in a chain that's got over 100 doors, that is able to kind of give us some insight, sneak peeks. And if you missed the Coffee Experts last week, I would encourage you to go back and listen to it. But we're going to kind of hit some of the highlights here. And maybe as you listen and you think today, you think to yourself, I'm nowhere near 100 doors. I'm nowhere near like being one of the biggest coffee chains in America. What could it possibly apply to me? My encouragement to you is like the way that you don't get lost is by having a map, right? And the way to have a map is the way to get to a destination. And so even if you hear things that you're like, that's way bigger than me, how could you scale that down and make your life easier, right? Because all of our desire is to grow and to become more successful. And maybe you don't aspire to have 100 shops someday, or maybe you do. But either way, we can learn from the big guys and cycle that stuff down to where we're at in business. Drew and I have 2 locations open in our 3rd this year. Like, how can we make our business better? Ben had, was servicing 15 doors and a roastery when he was running ops for Roasters Coffee. Like, how can we make our operations better no matter the volume of the shop? So what are some of the things, guys, that stuck out to you talking to Derek, and some of the things that we discussed last week when we talked specifically around tech? He oversees a lot of tech for BlackRock.
I think the biggest one was just being his openness to making such a large shift for their POS. That's not easy. Sometimes a POS can be a POS. But I think he even said it took him close to 9 months. That's not just something you're like, hey, let's change out our whole point of sale system tomorrow. That takes a lot of planning, a lot of thought through, a lot of research going into the right company. Everybody knows once you get your POS in and you get used to it, man, it's hard to teach your baristas a new system. It takes time for people to learn. So props to him to being open to say, hey, this isn't giving us everything that we need, we should go find a better solution. I think that should be the mantra of, every coffee shop owner or coffee company owner is you start small. So you start with small tools, but if you're consistently being like, hey, I don't think this serves us anymore, we should probably go find a better thing, be willing to do that. Otherwise you just get stuck. And so him to be willing to say, hey, we've got 100 plus locations, we're opening 30, 40, 50 more. That was a great time to just switch our entire system out, right? Proud for him on that, but they needed better reporting. It's just going to make that company and his job essentially better in the long run. But I mean, I've been there. We've swapped POSs in the past, even just swapping equipment. That's why I asked him. I was like, "Were you guys swapping out your own hardware? Because that is a beast, and it's a tough decision. Like every time we did, I was like, oh God."
Yes, dude. Props to that company. Was it Revel? They call it Revel, like the
Mhm.
POS system that they're using, just for the sake of being willing, even just to take that on, Ben. Like you're saying, obviously that's a big client. Obviously, that I don't know that they would do that for everybody. Maybe they do. Props to them if they do. But man, huge thing of changing out all the equipment. But I do think, when we shifted out from Square to Touchpoint for roasters, that was a big shift, and there was a
Mhm.
lot of pain in it, and there was a lot of discomfort in it. But the main reason we did it was you get to a point as you're scaling where you start realizing I Frankenstein together so many moving pieces that it's taking so much manual aggregation time of making sure everything's connected and pulling numbers and pulling reports and plugging it back in here. And like by that time, you've spent so much human resource hours that those hours could be going towards further in the business for the better.
Yep.
It's probably time now for us to invest in something that's a little bit more built for scale and we can scale up with it. So I know that was really tough for us, but like you're saying, kudos to Derek for making a pivot at a much larger place, knowing that he was going to see a lot more stores being open.
I
One thing
also
that
wonder how much he had to like sell the bigwigs on it. Like, hey, this I got this great idea. It's gonna take about 9 months to work. Hear me out.
his reasoning was, he said they were a small team as leadership, and as things grow and as things change, we know it's hard to be a small team as things grow. And so really needing to lean into the tech side of things and bringing on those types of systems, it's like it's hard to translate ideas across, departments to departments to departments. But if it is a small team and you want to keep it a small team, you're going to need to lean into those types of automations. And you can't just say, oh, it's going to happen overnight. Nothing happens over. It didn't get to 100 stores overnight. And along the way, like you said, they probably shoestringed a lot of stuff together and learned from a lot of those mistakes and pulled in a lot of those, you know, Frankenstein automations. So seeing 9 months into the future, I mean, that was Derek's jam. We brought him on roasters for similar reasoning. So if he can sell them on it, he probably had a lot of metric back, a lot of spreadsheet. And at some point, it probably confused somebody, and they were like, "Yeah, it sounds like a good sell."
I do think his history is like budgeting right and coming up with good budget and coming up with good numbers and coming up with justification. So maybe if you're on the listening end today and you're not the decision maker, but you're trying to convince the decision maker, which was Ben's job for years, trying to convince the decision maker. Now, Ben had a technique he called inception, and that was how do I suggest things and make the boss think that that was actually his idea when he brings it back to me. So think of ways that you can tuck that in. But I will say one of the biggest things that you can convince your boss with is money, right? Like, how are we spending so much money right now that we could actually cut some cost? And yeah, there's going to be some cost for us to make the switch, but could it be comparable or less? And therefore give your team more time to have free mental space to grow the brand in all new ways. Whereas right now, I mean, there was a time that Ben was using so much of his mental space, just pulling numbers, just trying to keep things pieced together with Google Sheets and all the different things we were trying to do, that it made a lot of sense to shift and move to a touch point style solution because it was a better solution, even though there was cost to it, where there was no cost to Square. And so I think that we had to come up with some real ways how we were going to make savings for Ben and for the team by cutting out Square and our Frankenstein ways and moving to an all-in-one solution.
With no cost square, right?
Right? That's a tough sell.
Even just like outside of the administrative side, you have the practical side for the baristas. I mean, when we were using Square, we were using iPads to iMessage orders in. Like most coffee shops these days, we ran orders. We didn't have a speaker. So you have a kid out there who's, typing orders in and iMessaging it to an iPad that works as a KDS inside. And that works if you have, pretty low volume, if you're not slammed all day. But just upgrading from that Frankenstein method to a method where, an iPad that has the actual drink on it, we got rid of, mistakes, the kids were able to run orders nearly twice as fast. You're talking about getting cars through faster. Like the inability to shift or upgrade your systems just on a practical standpoint is probably holding you back, pushing, twice as many cars through your drive. You're losing money. Like at a certain point, you have to say, okay, there's probably a better way to do this. And I'm costing myself money by not, bringing in a new system or upgrading or even keep my eyes open to what could be.
Yeah. I think too, like Derek brought up a great example of like, have to always keep a hand on the pulse, right? The previous system they were using was having a hard time with its card readers. The card readers were junk. They had switched over to a new credit card processor that wasn't as strong. So then the card reader isn't working as much. So to cut down on friction in the drive, the kids would, if the card reader didn't work, just give the drinks away for free, right? So then you're talking about a lot of money that you're hemorrhaging just for a functional, good customer experience, which is awesome, right? We'd always advocate for a good customer experience. That's what wins you good business. But when you're doing it over and over and over again because you're not fixing the systemic problem, then there becomes a question mark of how much money are we losing? And Derek said that their sales radically increased just by that one quick swap out of let's get a better credit card processor that we're not going to have so many problems with so that we can actually capture all the money for the drinks that we're making. Thought that was a great call.
Yep. Smart. He's a smart dude.
Another thing that I really liked about what he talked about was tracking metrics. He said that he and his team were spending so much time pulling together the numbers that the decision makers needed that there came to a point where it's like, hey, we just need all of the systems to talk. And their previous POS system they were using didn't play nice. There are a lot of POS systems out there that get really proprietary and they're like, no, only our tools, nobody else. But this new system that they moved to, it's got a lot of open API where there's a lot of connections where you can connect to other people and other people's tools, which allowed everything to begin to speak the same language and come up with some really great metrics for them to follow. And, maybe you're listening today and you're like, Aaron, that sounds expensive. What I would really encourage you with is if you can't afford something expensive, how can you get a similar result? And I would say the best thing I can give you guys, the best advice I can give you, and this is a totally free solution I'm going to offer, and that is start tracking with Scorecard exactly what your metrics are week over week. We roll out EOS for clients all the time, which is Entrepreneur's Operating System. It's just an operating system for your people. But one of the things that we do is help people create a scorecard to determine what are the key metrics I should be watching week over week so that we can make decisions based on those metrics. So I know when Drew and I meet with our team every week for our level 10 meetings, right, with EOS operations meeting once a week, we open up our scorecard and we track different metrics. And those metrics are pulled from different places. Some of them come out of Square, some of them come out of 7shifts, some of them come out of our P&Ls, some of them come out of our customer experience, like how many complaints have we gotten, so we're tracking Yelp and we're tracking TripAdvisor and all the different things that we track and Google reviews for the sake of let's bring it all now down, shake it down to one place. We're looking at one set of metrics with all the decision makers in the room and let's start having some conversations. And I think that I cannot advocate for more. And I would gladly give you our sheet for free. If you want to hit us up on Instagram, on Coffee Experts Club, you just check us out there or Facebook or any TikTok, we're there as well. If you just send an inbox message, I'll send out to you the sheet. But the sheet is awesome because I think it's just week over week, how can we make pivot decisions? And Drew will be like, hey, why did the numbers drop so high? Or why did that number spike so hard? And then we can dig down on solving that and maybe noting that so that next year when we look back a year ago, we can make good decisions based on, was that a traffic pattern situation? Was that a holiday that we hit? Was that something that we want to remember? Was that some sort of celebration that's happening on the island that we want to make sure that we don't miss because we're Americans and we don't even think about what's going on the island from, this many miles away? But I just think I really want to advocate for scorecard metrics.
Coffee shop owners are notoriously really good at looking at daily sales every day. Look at the sales, look at the sales, and notoriously infamous for forgetting what yesterday's sales were or the week before sales were. So it's always like, our sales are down today. Well, I mean, if we had a scorecard, we would know that they've been like this for the last 4 weeks because school just got out and there's no moms coming through in the morning with their kids. Like the best part of that scorecard is like, you have your historical data. So it's not always just like knee jerk, like, why are the sales? Why are the sales? We could just pull up and say, okay, it's been tracking like this for the last 3 weeks. We should probably make, a change. Or, it's awesome for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. What are we doing different? Like, what's going on that's making us so great? So historical data is great. And actually being able to use it is good too. Like you can always go, Square, sure, you can go in, jump on your laptop, change the date, look at this date versus last year. But Most CEOs I've known aren't quick to jump on that and really dig into that. It's a lot easier if you just have a line of data that say this was sales last week before that, week before that, week before that. And it's really easy to look at.
I mean, for us here specifically, I mean, Belize has like 20 national holidays, you know,
And no joke.
and some of them are, and it's been kind of a mess for payroll because some are double pay, some are time and a half pay, some are regular pay, some are, and if the oil falls on a weekend, you got to pay both people for making up on a weekday. So tracking those types of things for our, why did our sale jump this day? And it's like, oh, they're celebrating the guy that their major highway is named after, or there's various things that they celebrate. And the traffic patterns here, like we came into this totally blind. The traffic patterns are so spontaneous, even still to me. It's like when I was working at the GUA roasters, almost like annually on the same day every year, we would almost hit the same dollars per hour by hour as we did the year before. And out here, it's like, okay, well, this week we're up, 20%. And then the next week we're down 30%. And the next week and it doesn't, looking at it daily, it could give me anxiety, and I had to get out of that because that was kind of how it was at roasters was, how are we doing today? How are we doing today? How are we doing today every day? And now it's like, well, it's not really reflecting our actual success if I look at it daily. I have to look at that at the weekly, the monthly trends and take notes because it is a new market for us and a lot of things happen that we're just not used to.
I think too, like metrics that have been really cool for us to track is, because Belize is so low tech, right? We're not talking about high tech. It's a third world country, right? So it's a low tech nation. So we've had to come up with solutions that are going to work for them, like WhatsApp channels where everybody can join in and we can see how is loyalty working. So on our report card, on our scorecard, we've got, hey, we did this push at the beginning of the week. How many of those people came in based upon how we transacted the sales because they have to show us their WhatsApp app to get the deal, right? So for us, it's like, how's our loyalty doing? That's our loyalty equivalent. How many punch cards have been turned in? We're still using punch cards down in Belize because it's once again, a simple concept for a simple place, but they bring in the punch cards. How many were turned in? How many were used? How's that return going? How many employee drinks were used this week? And like us watching shrink when it comes to some of those things, as you're starting to report on that, then you can begin to ask your team very pointed questions based upon very real numbers, right? Numbers don't lie. So did you or did you not give out that many punches? Did you or did you not take that many drinks? Did you or did you like all these different pieces? I think it's really nice to have week over week reflection too on, hey, what just happened? Why did we just see so much less loyalty this week than we did last week when it comes to a percentage conversion of sales? And I think that just great numbers to be able to justify how much more energy do we give to this or when do we cut this thing loose? I think that there's some good data in the numbers.
Well, and if we want our managers to perform at a high level, we're gonna want to have answers to some of those questions.
Yep.
They might not even ask the question, but we might be able to pose them as questions to our managers and start thinking that way. I know for a long time as upper management at roasters, it was like, okay, I just want to answer the question. I just want to tell the manager why. I want to tell the manager how. But then we started, I don't know, a few years in to be like asking the questions to lead them to think about the answer. When you have this, it's like a framework of data that you can start to ask managers certain types of questions that you've been thinking in a certain direction. And then hopefully if you have the right people, slowly build those ideas and skills in them.
I think to your point too, Aaron, like you may not, with, 1, 2, 3, 4 shops, you may not have the capital to invest in something like a Rebel where it's a technology solution that does dang near everything it sounds like. I mean, I'm sure it's a great system and I'm sure it's costs a pretty penny. Like you may not have the capital to throw into that, but like you won't ever unless you start tracking your systems with, a scorecard or you're not constantly teaching your managers to look at these. So unless you start with a little bit of duct tape and start tracking this stuff yourself, you'll never get to the point where you have the capital to actually upgrade it to a fully automated system. Nobody just like starts a coffee shop and says, yeah, sure, I'll drop $100,000 on a POS system.
Right.
Like you got to work yourself up to that point. And the only way you do that is by starting off with those sort of foundational things, tracking my trends, my weekly, my monthly trends, not just like what are daily sales, tracking your labor and your inventory, like Derek was talking about, like all of that starts with a piece of paper. Then you upgrade from a piece of paper to a better computer system. And from there, you just keep stair stepping up, but you never get to the end of the road if you don't start.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there.
Well, nobody wants to work forever. We all want to
That's it
retire.
right there. That's it right there, Drew. Like yours sounded so noble on like pouring into people and how do we train up people and I think that is the noble side of it. But let's get selfish for a minute. Owners who are listening to us, like you're burning yourself out by trying to keep all the data to yourself, all the knowledge to yourself. And what you want to do is empower people so that Drew, like you just said, you can retire. Drew, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I do think that's true.
It's not something that you want to work at forever. You don't start a business so that you can die doing the day to day of the business, and
Right.
eventually the magic of working the day to day is not so magical when it's a job, a full time job every day. You don't start a business to have a full time job. You start a business to be able to do what you want to do with the business, and you can't always do that if you're in the midst of it all the time.
I think too, like something that's been really cool for me to watch you, Drew. Let me just brag on Drew here for a minute. Something that has been really cool for me to watch is like Drew was a guy who worked his way up from the bottom, right? Just a normal old barista, moved his way up to the point where he was assistant managing and then regional managing over 7 locations, and then was going to go out and be a franchisee. And then obviously Roasters sold to BlackRock. That was our connection to Derek. But it led to Drew and I partnering in this thing down to Belize, where Drew took his machines and his knowledge and all these things that he had down to Belize, and he went down there and he's been pouring into team. But what I've seen really cool in Drew is the development of how can I get these kids, right? They're young people. How can I train their mind to think, to ask the right questions, to bring me back the right data so that it opens up my prospects? For Drew has moved into like syrup creation. We're doing our own syrup creation down there. Like we're looking for other businesses that we can start alongside of ourselves that actually make things better for us, that run in tandem. And I think that Drew's done a great job at, hey, how can we think bigger than this? In fact, sometimes Drew and I have to have a conversation. I'm like, whoa, bro, let's nail down the first few businesses before you want to go start a bank. Like Drew's got all these huge dreams, you know what I mean? But I think it does open up that mindset, because otherwise, if you're always overwhelmed, just working the day to day, just slinging coffee, cups out the window, you're so burned out, you can't even dream for the bigger stuff because you're just so tired. And so I think that the best way you can do that is how do you delegate down so you can elevate up? It's another EOS principle. Like, how do I systemize things enough that I make it delegatable down? How can I delegate this down? Because it doesn't require my brilliance anymore to do this day-to-day work. And I think the more and more that you can multiply yourself, that may feel scary. You may be worried they're going to take your information and go start a place up the street. But I promise you, there's enough coffee business for you to continue to be awesome at what you do. And even if they went to go start someplace else, don't let the fear keep you pigeonholed into burning yourself out. It's not worth it.
And peace of mind doesn't have to be expensive. It might take a little front load work, but that's a lot cheaper than 10 years of doing manual labor.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to wake up at 4 a.m. every day for the rest of their lives? I know I didn't.
You didn't even when you had to. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You don't wake up to open up the shop this early every day. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is. And just like that, I mean, you'll never be able to, if you're stuck on bar all day, every day, even if you're owner, you're working more than 8 hours, that's a given. But if you're stuck on bar, or even just in the day to day, you never get the chance to even pull your head up to even look at like what could be better. Like I know when you're managing a shop, especially in the morning, if you're a busy shop, that 5 a.m. to noon, those 7 hours, like good luck breathing, let alone like thinking about how could I make this POS system better? Like that's not happening. And then you get off and your brain's fried. Like you need to give yourself a chance to be able to poke your head up from under the water a little bit and say, how can I make this better? And you'll never do that if you don't start systematizing and training people up and giving people, a little bit of responsibility and a little bit of power inside your business.
If you're listening to this stuff, I'm going to just give you a shameless plug. I don't know if you guys know, we have an academy of sorts called Coffee Experts Club. So it's an academy that is just where you can go and get all this kind of stuff, tools, education. It's not super expensive. And if you just want like tools like this and just insights like this, or to put somebody young through your business through something that you're like, I'm not very technical, that overwhelms me. I know I need to grow, and you're wondering where to send them. I think Coffee Experts Club is a great spot. You just check it out, coffeeexpertsclub.com. We're redoing the website right now, so I think we should have that up within the next week or two, but definitely someplace where you can get learning and tools, and it's easy and it's simple and it doesn't break the bank. And you can also fall back into us as a team, because I do think we do a lot of project management. We do a lot of help with coffee shops beyond just the podcast. So I think if ever you're feeling like you're in that spot and you're just like, man, I want to grow, want to get better, I'm stuck, I know I'm stuck, you don't have to do that kind of stuff alone. We'd love to help you out with that. So I think that a little bit of shameless plug, but I know, Drew, you spend a lot of time consulting coffee shops. I know, Ben, we pull you in for the heavy lifts a lot of times, where we just are stuck and we're like, hey, Ben, can you help with this? And there's several other people on the team that have great coffee knowledge. And we help with grand openings. We do it all, but I do think if you're just looking for some of the simple stuff, just some of the tech, and you feel a little bit lost with tech, we'd love to have a conversation, so just know we want to be a support beyond just something you're listening to as a podcast. We want to make sure that we're reachable. So once again, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, TikTok. We'd love to talk with you. Just have some questions.
We're really good at swapping out POS systems too.
Oh, man. That is not, I didn't advertise that for a reason. That is a lift. But I will say, if you are in that spot, don't let us intimidate you from it. Just know there was a reason Derek said you got to think about it for some months, right? Like naming conventions, huge one. Like, let's just make sure everybody's speaking the same language. Let's make sure across all locations we're doing the right things. Make sure your inventory is lined up the right way. Make sure that everything is connected back to the right places, right things, right systems, even once you've got that, because once you have everything there, it doesn't mean it just works, So think about the systems that front load into those pieces.
I remember when we first changed from Square to Touchpoint, it took me about 2 weeks to get all of the baristas to agree on the order that the drink should be displayed on the ordering system. Is it the Milky Way first, or is it the Snickers first? Well, we get a lot of Milky Ways ordered over here. We get a lot of this drink ordered over here. And it took a couple weeks just to get everybody to agree on, okay, this is how we like it. These are how the drinks are going to be lined up when we're looking at them. Like something as small as that, you don't really think about until you go, oh gosh. And then everybody's got their own opinion. And then at some point you just say, this is how it is. You have to deal with it.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was funny. That was a funny section where he was talking about what were the terms he was using? The item versus the identifier or something like that. There was
the modifiers, the items and the modifiers. Holy cow. I will say though, his talking about just going back to that system, the ability for the inventory management, for the automated ordering, that's something I had never even thought of. Like, it makes total sense. But if your manager's ordering goods through the POS system and it's tracking that, like, it can make recommendations based off what you ordered for the last 4 weeks. Like, that alone could save so much money in misordered items. I mean, that's something we dealt with all the time with managers, and saying, why do you have so much of this? Or why didn't you get enough of that? And that alone is, I think, if you're wavering on whether or not you want to upgrade your POS system, I would highly recommend researching out there like they did, like Derek did, and say, well, okay, what are the capabilities of these things? If I can't have the cream of the crop, what would really help me out? The inventory management system probably would save you a lot of money.
Yeah. I know that's something me and Drew are like, yep, like we're thinking about all the time, like supply chain and growth and adding a new location. And especially for Belize, it hits like 5 different places by the time it hits one of our shops. It's coming through Texas, then it hits a main hub in Belize, and then it heads over to the coast, and then it heads from the coast to the island, then it has to be distributed. Like, it's a lot of moving pieces. And that's even after the kid put the order in, to get it at the shop to realize, are you kidding me? Like, we're out. How do we run out of that? And then it's like chasing that all the way backwards. Like, where did that problem happen? Was it the kid ordering? Was it the order that was placed? Did they back order? Like, if you can manage that someplace centrally, it's definitely a wise decision to make.
Yep. Probably agree.
Awesome, gents. Well, hey, great Coffee Experts Club. Thank you guys for joining us again today for Coffee Experts Club. We love being here on the podcast. And man, if you want resources, just know we're a limitless place of resources. We give them for free. There are things you can purchase, all those different pieces there. So if you have questions and you got stuck, any of these episodes you ever hear, just know we love hearing from you. We love hearing from our guests. Hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on TikTok, and we will see you guys next week on Coffee Expert Club. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.